All right. So this story is on r/D&D by Physics VG. Player read the source book for an upcoming campaign. I just need to get this off my chest because I don't know what to do now. I bought a source book, Obijima, for the upcoming campaign. One of the players found out and then begged me to give access. The artwork was awesome, the concept was nice, and I mentioned it would be fine as long as they read the setting only and stayed away from the DM only stuff. But then they read the DM only stuff. Adventure hooks, twists, monster manual, everything. The start of the source book literally states that they color coded the pages of certain ones as DM only. And when I said, "Did you read the adventure hooks?" they admitted to it and apologized. I don't know what to do. I was planning to run this for the next campaign. I don't know that this player doesn't metagame. I know this player doesn't metagame, but the fun reveals lore has kind of been ruined for me. So for my opinion, I feel like it's not a big deal. The player is really excited to play, and they admitted it, so they're not keeping a secret. And going forward, you still do what you want to do, and the player's probably just as happy. And maybe you switch things up a little bit. All right, here's the update. Thanks a lot to everyone for suggestions and assurance that a familiar campaign is not ruined. I'm a DM that's a year into my first homebrew campaign. I was considering running something from source for the first time to lighten the load and having to craft so much from scratch. I'm talked to the player and I've known to him that I understand that it's an honest mistake done over because of over enthusiasm, and at this point, since he's pretty far into the book, he should continue to read the source and enjoy it anyway. No point in letting a good book go to waste. It was a breach of trust, but at some time looking back, I can find any written text about staying clear sections of the DM. Only mentioned verbally about voiding DM section, which is probably where the misunderstanding came from. In a way, perhaps it's also my fault that I wasn't explicit with the do not read this section and this section. Discussions about this next campaign will come later, but it's likely we'll do a different campaign if I am DMing. If he wishes to do Obijima, he seemed very excited about it. He will have to DM it, especially since he's more familiar with the book than me at this point. Unfortunately, that's the consequence of him reading the DM section. He'll still be invited to the table, but I don't have the mental capacity to homebrew over a source book with new twists while juggling my personal stuff next campaign, and hence will be avoiding the Obijima campaign if he's at the table. Wow. I'm pretty surprised by that. They're not doing the Obijima, but I guess he has other options, so it's not a big deal. Personally, I would have done it anyway. Some of these comments. Bandos Nothing 69 says, sounds like they volunteered to be the DM for themselves and let you play for once. Where's this out? You, Joe, says, sounds to me like you've established a clear boundary. They trampled over your boundary. You gotta hold to your boundaries in life, or else you'll be a doormat. I don't know for you, that means kicking player out, ending your friendship, but it certainly means that you need to make clear those deliberate violations of trust. And Physics, the OP replies, the problem with this, in my experience with him as a player so far, he's a good-hearted guy, but he has an intelligence of 8. My assumption is that he's overexcited to read the source book. It never occurred to him that I would want to use the material in there for running the next campaign. I really don't want to cut ties because he's a good player so far, and I feel like it's an honest mistake, but it hurts so much. Tesla Coil says, I ran a Forge of Fury for a player who knew about it from playing and running it several times before, and it worked out fine there. The player was good about not mitigating, and when it came to choose a PC for the Succubus to Charm, I chose his to make it easier on both of us. So if you don't need to scrap a whole campaign just because someone knows the material, if they can avoid mitigating. I certainly think there's serious issues with the player reading the DM-only parts of a module they know they're going to run, especially when specifically asked not to do that. But I'm not going to be a classic writer until you handle your interpersonal relationships based off one post's worth of knowledge. One good option is to tell the player you're going to change things, and this could be a straight-up lie. The player would know how things turn out as written, but never be 100% confident that you're running it that way. So they still have some level of uncertainty. It wouldn't be the same level of uncertainty that the rest of the players have, but it's something. It also helps cover your butt if the players interpreted something differently. If the player knows that a room has a secret door that is perceivable with a passive perception of 14 and you don't mention it, that could be because you forgot or because you thought the door was only visible from the other side or something else, and the player thinks you're running everything raw. That can cause some awkwardness. If the player thinks you're changing things, they'll let you get away with it, which is usually negative if you did forget about the door, I guess. Yeah, the comments pretty much just say run it anyway, and he's not going to do that. So living definition says OP. I did the same exact thing as a player as a dumb kid, like 15 or so, when the Curse of the Crimson Throne adventure path first came out to the OG Pathfinder, so circa 2009, when it was very new. My dad was the DM and ended that campaign over it. I was annoyed at the time, but with my experience, I realized he was right. I messed up the party pretty badly, and it was a good lesson and one I would put to use when I became a DM. My players looked through my notes while I was in the bathroom. I canceled their session and rewrote a good chunk of the campaign. Whatever you decide to do, you need to make sure your player learns a lesson from this. Many people consider flat out cheating. I would consider having some consequences if you keep them in your campaign, and be sure to understand the extra work you have to do to surprise them now. Hmm, interesting. Greeting Outlander says, run it anyway. I reread DM and played several popular modules, Curse of Strahd. I was still eager to try to get fresh session zero for some of these same games and not be a disruptive meta dick about it. Player knowledge is not character knowledge. If the player question is there for the table and story, fine, everything will be fine. If they are not, they would be obvious that you have that conversation. A player cleric having an in-character rant about behaviors of the undead is not metagaming. A player wizard venting out how some situation could be a magical trap is not metagaming. As a DM, you can always try to give anything a little plot twist to certain issues. Payneck says, okay, so a few things. Unlike seemingly other comments, I actually looked up the book and it's a setting book, not a pre-written campaign. This would be comparable to let a player read through Wildemount, Ravnica, Eberron, or pure setting books. It's not like they picked up Candledeep and read through all the adventures. That brings me to a second point. Most of these books have a gazetteer section. Stuff like adventure hooks that OP mentioned that are usually detailed right here, description of places. They're usually 2 to 3 sentences long. It's possible to skip reading those, but they're so short and in the middle of other texts it's unlikely to be malicious. Third point, plenty of players read the monster manual. Looking at 3.5 monster manual was how I first got introduced to D&D. Calling it a bestiary DM only stuff is just silly. So here's what I would. Mining for willpower says. So here's what I would do in my situation. I just started Curse of Strahd campaign and told my players I only have 2 rules: don't make it unfun for others, and don't read the source material. If they had, I would have prevented them from playing, as those are the key components of the campaign that would have ruined it. It's up to you to keep this in mind. Could ruin the game for other players. Loose Translator says, so I don't know about you, but I personally really enjoy customizing the pre-written adventures. Maybe swapping the race of NPC, replacing NPCs with someone else, and adding some additional plot hooks and the adventures beyond what the adventure says. Of course, a lot of times the reason someone is running pre-written adventures because they don't want to deal with that. Or maybe you just don't have the right skills for it. And if that's the case, this advice might be for you. But if you just change some of the details of the venture, it doesn't necessarily matter if they already read the book. Even if you just change some at the start of the game, it might get them to think that they can't just rely on the information they already read, and they will help them avoid metagaming. The OP replies, I'm I'm reaching the end of the full homebrew campaign that was customized for player backgrounds, and I feel a bit burnout. Hence, the thought of running from source this time. Homebrewing differences would definitely be great, but it also means time and effort spent on it. Yeah, so overall, everyone has their own take on it. Some people don't care. Some people think it's irreparable. I personally think it's not a big deal. Just change some things and be happy they're honest with you. All right, and that's about all I want to say about this post. Yeah, take it easy.